Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. It's been 2 years of Joe Biden's DOJ, headed by Merrick Garland, being used essentially as an arm of the DNC, an arm of Biden's administration doing his bidding. Actually, rather than an arm, it's been more of a strong arm. There's been many documented cases of clear political bias, what seem to be attacks on conservative voters and conservative politicians, while Democrats essentially get a pass. And there's many people, especially conservatives, with legitimate concern and questions that need answering, but we haven't really had a moment to get some answers from Merrick Garland, at least until now. The House GOP, I have to admit, has been on fire, and it seems like now even Republican senators are getting on board, as the investigation into weaponization and politicization of the DOJ and the FBI is kicking into full gear. Merrick Garland was brought into a hearing to testify, and he got absolutely BTFO'd basically from all angles. An embarrassing display of incompetence and dishonesty, I guess confirming that Merrick Garland doesn't have any real answers, no real justification, no counter to the claim that his DOJ is totally partisan. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so I mentioned examples earlier, but I didn't really go into too much detail. Left-wing bias seems to be deeply baked into the FBI and the DOJ in the current day. You know, Antifa and far-left activist groups roaming the streets, setting churches on fire, attacking pro-life centers, is probably the most classic, clear, and blatant example, showing FBI and DOJ non-action. When concerned parents showed up at school board meetings, protesting predator teachers and an inappropriate curriculum, Merrick Garland and the DOJ sicked FBI agents on those parents, clearly because they were perceived as a right-wing extremist threat. But when Antifa goons threaten the lives of Supreme Court justices, or attack pro-life centers, and in some cases even write their names on the wall, the DOJ does nothing. And Merrick Garland's response to this line of questioning was absolutely pathetic. There's no other way to describe it.
In 2022 and for the first couple of months of 2023, DOJ has announced charges against 34 individuals for blocking access to or vandalizing abortion clinics. And there have been over 81 reported attacks on pregnancy centers, 130 attacks on Catholic churches since the leak of the Dobbs decision, and only 2 individuals have been charged. So how do you explain this disparity by reference to anything other than politicization of what's happening there?
The FACE Act applies equally to efforts to damage, blockade clinics, whether whether they are a pregnancy resource center or whether they are an abortion center. It applies equally in both cases, and we apply the law equally. I will say you're quite right. There are many more prosecutions with respect to the blocking of the abortion centers, but that is generally because those actions are taken with photography at the time, during the daylight, and seeing the person who did it is quite easy. Those who are attacking the pregnancy resources centers, which is a horrid thing to do, are doing this at night. In the dark.
Oh, well, the DOJ doesn't prosecute many Antifa attacks on pro-life pregnancy centers because they happen at night. There you go, folks. If you operate at night, if you commit crimes at night, then the DOJ will, I guess, just give up and just let you to continue in your terrorist actions? What did I just listen to? Senator Marsha Blackburn really puts this incompetent answer into perspective.
We talked about the way parents of children were treated, and because they were concerned over what was being taught in schools. Senator Kennedy just went through that with you. You applied domestic terrorism as a term in couching that activity. Now, under federal law, which you have cited, this is how you term domestic terrorism, and I'm quoting, activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state. So under that definition, would you agree that firebombing a crisis pregnancy center constitutes an act of domestic terrorism?
I would say yes, but I want to again disagree with your earlier characterizations. There was no memorandum about parents complaining to their school boards. And there was
Talking about firebombing pregnancy
I understand,
centers now.
and there was no reference in that memo to
would agree
using domestic
that
terrorism.
Firebombing
Where it said, yes, firebombing where
domestic terrorism.
it's at least domestic violent
Okay,
extremism.
so then let's talk about the far-left group Jane's Revenge, because they claimed responsibility for that. They went so far as to spray paint their name on the wall. So do you intend to prosecute them?
We intend, if we find them, to do that. There is a
So you can't find them?
If you have information about those groups, we
Well,
would be happy to.
that is your job.
A group called Jane's Revenge claimed responsibility for firebombing pregnancy centers, and they went as far as spray painting their names on the wall. But Merrick Garland says that, the FBI just isn't equipped to catch them. Now, it honestly seems as though Merrick Garland is trying to avoid accountability for his clearly partisan actions through a defense of, I guess, seeming incompetence. But I'm just not buying it. The reason the DOJ isn't prosecuting or refusing to prosecute left-wing terrorists and left-wing criminals isn't because it's just too hard to investigate events that occur during the time of night. I mean, that's most crimes if you think about it. The real reason is that the DOJ is focused on helping craft this leftist narrative that political extremism and terrorism only exists on one side of the political spectrum, and that's the right wing. And so maybe they don't want to boost up left-wing hate crimes and left-wing active terrorism crime statistics, because then their entire narrative falls apart. Joe Biden's infamous quote that the greatest threat to the homeland are those pesky right-wing MAGA extremists all of a sudden won't age so well. These pathetic DOJ and FBI goons expect us to take their right-wing extremism narrative seriously when they refuse to prosecute left-wing crimes. Ted Cruz absolutely hammered Merrick Garland on this particular issue when it came to threats of violence and actual attempted violent acts against Supreme Court justices.
I sent 70 United States Marshals.
Let me try again.
To defend. And
has the Department of Justice brought even a single case under this statute? It's a yes/no question. It's not a give a speech on the other things you did.
The job of the United States Marshals is to defend the lives
So
of
the answer is no.
Is to defend the lives of the justices, and that's our number one priority. They have.
Why are you unwilling to say no? The answer is no. You know it's no. I know it's no. Everyone in this hearing room knows it's no. You're not willing to answer a question. Have you brought a case under this statute? Yes or no?
As far as I know, we haven't, and what we have done is defended the lives of the justices with over 70 U.S. Marshals.
How do you decide which criminal statutes the DOJ enforces and which one it doesn't?
The United States Marshals know that they have full authority.
I recognize you want to give a separate speech.
No, I don't want to give
How do you decide which statutes you enforce and which ones you don't?
The marshals on scene make that determination in light of the priority of defense.
The marshals do not make a determination over whether to prosecute. You, the Attorney General, make a determination, and you spent 20 years as a judge, and you're perfectly content with justices being afraid for their children's lives, and you did nothing to prosecute it. Let's shift to another area.
Can I answer the question?
No, you cannot. You have refused to answer the question.
I am answering your question. The Attorney General does not decide whether to arrest.
How did you choose not to enforce this statute?
The marshals on scene.
Marshals don't make that decision.
They do make the decision of whether to make an arrest.
To prosecute someone? No, they don't.
If they make
marshals do not have prosecution.
If they make an arrest, then it goes to the marshals.
Let's change topics because our time is limited.
He literally brought the U.S. code law with him. We covered that exact law, I can't remember how many months ago, after the Supreme Court Roe v. Wade draft leak. There are so many leftist activists, whether Antifa goons on the streets or Blue Anon lunatics on Twitter, who should have been charged to the fullest extent of the law and prosecuted for this exact crime, irrefutable intent of influencing a judge. And it's not even necessarily up for interpretation. I don't think there's any doubt as to their intent. Their intent was to influence Supreme Court justices to rule in favor of deeming Roe v. Wade constitutional. But Merrick Garland conjures this pathetic defense that the lack of prosecutions has something to do with U.S. Marshals. Thank the Lord this Merrick Garland clown never made it to the Supreme Court. I mean, if Mitch McConnell did one thing right, it was blocking this guy's nomination. And thank the Lord that Donald Trump ended up winning in 2016 and securing those 3 scoops. A totally embarrassing performance by Merrick Garland. I'm sure some people were probably expecting some closure, some conclusion, some answers from Merrick Garland, but of course that would never happen. At the end of the day, his non-answers and his His pathetic excuses are all the answers you need. The DOJ has been politicized. It is the strong arm of the Democrat establishment. Merrick Garland is the partisan goon who's overseeing the entire machine. No legal accountability for Democrats and their activist goons on the streets. And of course, legal persecution is always on the menu when it comes to conservatives. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that Merrick Garland actually said, well, we can't prosecute these individuals because they commit their crimes at night. Holy moly, what a friggin' facepalm moment. That's what I got for you guys for this one, though. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know that we would love to have you here at the Liberal Hive Mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.